Here at Helmuth Ford, we are a small town dealership with no hassle and no pressure.
Watch Pekin Panther football live right here this fall on Steve Shuttler Media, Facebook, and YouTube with live announcers and an updated scoreboard, plus an area scoreboard to keep you updated on other schools of interest. It's Pekin Panther football live right here on Steve Shuttler Media.
And now, your hosts of the Card Subject to Change podcast, the For Frequency's Sake Tag Team Champions of the World, the Wizard CZ, and Never Wrong Nick Bull.
Hello, one and all, and welcome back to another exciting edition of the Card Subject to Change podcast. Episode 150. Unbelievable to think we'd be 150 episodes deep when we started this thing up, CZ, but so glad that we are. Of course, I am your host, Never Wrong, Nick Bull. I'd be remiss if I did not mention my tag team partner, the co-champ of the For Frequency's Sake podcast network, the one and the only, the Wizard CZ. Wiz, how you doing, bud?
Man, you said it right off the bat, 150 episodes. How did we get here? Awesome. With that,
it doesn't seem like 150. Like it seems like we just started this, but so much has changed in wrestling. I think the first show we ever did, and you'll know this better than me. Your mind's a little sharper than mine, I would think. We reviewed SummerSlam. Was it 2022?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. What a crazy. How much has changed in wrestling since then? Just the whole landscape of the product itself, the whole landscape of wrestling has changed so much, and we're glad that you've been along with us for all those changes. We're so glad you're back here with us for another exciting episode. And I'll let you go ahead and take it over, Wiz, since I cut you off a little bit earlier there.
Hey, that's okay. I'm glad you guys are all joining us here again for another great episode. And I, of course, would feel bad if I didn't at least mention our sponsors right off the top. We are grateful to be powered by Lopez Pizza, built by Durham Remodeling, colored by Ryan Allison Tattoo, and of course protected by Jared Zook of Country Financial. And we've got a guest coming into the studio that we've had on before, but only briefly. If you guys remember back in July, we did our Absolute Pro Wrestling pre-show podcast party up in Waterloo, Iowa, and we'll be back doing that, or we'll talk about that a little later. We're approaching the second one here in October in just a couple of weeks, but joining us back in the actual studio for a long-form interview, I am happy to welcome in the heretic himself, Damian Saint. Damian, how are you today, sir?
Hanging in there. How about you guys?
Doing great, man. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. Just taking time out of my night. It's a beautiful night on Sunday, and here
I guess technically you're not a first-time guest, but it's the first time being in the studio. So I'm going to go ahead and ask you what I ask all our first-time guests in the studio is why professional wrestling? What got you hooked? Why are you involved? And why do you continue to be involved?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll just start from like the beginning. Obviously, like when we were kids, we all enjoyed watching this stuff, right? I mean, like, let's be honest. Evolution 2003, when they all formed that faction, it's just that whole era there that just kind of popped for me. Spike TV, everything's kind of, back and forth with the Attitude Era and like getting into the New Age era, of course, just being the Ruthless Aggression era, of course. And I think that just like that spoke to me. Everything about that era spoke to me. And I think the reason why I continue to be involved is just because truthfully, we're telling stories, man. Like we're telling stories. We're giving it everything we've got, putting our bodies on the line every single day to make sure people are going home entertained. And at the end of the day, that's just what I love doing, just entertaining people and just taking care of people. So it's what I do for a living outside. We've all talked about it before on the podcast that I work at Aldi as my shoot, and obviously pulling back the curtain a little bit by saying that, but that's truthfully, like, I just love taking care of people and knowing that people enjoy what they see. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
I I want to spin off of that a little bit. You talk about, good storytelling.
Yep.
Usually at this point, I would ask, if there's a particular moment or a particular epiphany for you that got you to say, I want to do this. But I'm going to spin it a little bit since we're talking about stories.
Yeah.
Is there a particular storyline that you watched that you said, well, I want to be a part of that and I want to do something just like that?
I would say if you could remember Edge versus John Cena for the longest time, that always resonated.
Yes.
06 era portion of that storyline where he's throwing the title in the river, beating the crap out of his dad. You know what I mean? Like that was like, wow, they're like going for it. He's literally in his home. Like, this is kind of wild. Like, remember when Stone Cold, or, that segment where the gun got pulled on TV, you know what I mean? Like with
Pillman and Stone Cold.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, dude. Like, they were doing some wild crap, but even then they still extended it that far out to 06, 07, 08, where they brought ECW back in. And I think just like Edge and John Cena always had, and I don't know, I have always been told that my facial expressions remind people of Edge and remind people of hey, you're bringing me back to when I watched Edge on TV, you know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. And he was one of my favorite wrestlers. So being able to hear that and put that forward, I think that's a big portion of the reason why, I keep doing this is because I'm able to tell a story with my face. And that always goes back to John Cena and Edge because he always has the best facial expressions of when he's losing, he's like, oh my God, or just going through a table, putting his body on the line. And I think that I'm pretty good about, giving my all, no matter who's in the ring with me. So I think that just knowing that Edge was able to do that for John Cena of all people, obviously is the greatest of all time. So it's kind of why I keep doing it.
That story had a lot of good memories, but I always gravitate towards the very beginning of their rivalry. You're sitting at New Year's Revolution.
Yeah.
The cell is coming up, bloody Cena in the middle of the ring. Out comes Mr. McMahon. Oh, no, your night's not over yet.
Yeah.
And the cash in. That moment stands out as one of my favorite memories in all of wrestling.
Oh, 100%. And you can kind of correlate it a little bit with what's going on with me and another person, maybe wait to speak his name, but you kind of had that same moment this past few months ago, not literally the exact same, but you still have the blood, you still have the suitcase. So it all happens for you can. That's what's great about wrestling is being subjective and being able to tell your story and, go back full force and full swing. And you're always going to have a rival and you're always going to be able to go back to it. So there it is.
The reason I love doing this show, I love having people come in here and talk about an instant in wrestling they loved. And then, man, I love piggybacking off it. I mean, I think Edge is Cena's greatest rival.
Oh, 100%.
I wish Edge would be the one to retire Cena. That's probably not going to happen, knowing that Edge is with another company right now.
Yep.
But Edge really came into his own as the rated R superstar. And I think you got to give a bulk of that credit to Cena, fanning that flame, being his rival during that time. Unbelievable. I mean, Edge broke out of the mold, in my opinion, during that time. He really separated himself. When he was the Edge single star before, he was always, connected to Christian in that tag team. But man, the ball got rolling when he turned into the rated R superstar. Oh. And boom, it was a whole new ball game.
Yep. I can't agree with you more. And like I said, I think you see that, that first Intercontinental Championship run, and then he just starts to finally break out of this little shell. You know what I mean? And it just was little by little. And it's kind of the same thing with me in independent wrestling, and not to bring it in and correlate it to myself. But I mean, truthfully, that's kind of what's happening right now with my character is that I'm starting to break out of this little mold, and people are starting to finally see what it's worth to, pay the money to watch Damian wrestle certain people. And I think it's a beautiful thing. And I don't know, I'm privileged is the best way I can put it. I know a lot of heels or bad guys wouldn't say that, but we all are human, right? And deep down, I'm privileged. I'm able to do this, and it's an honor to be able to do this because it's something I've dreamed of doing as a child, literally as a 6-year-old kid back in the backyard, jumping on a trampoline, slamming pillows down,
right.
Yep.
Yeah, the mega power, all that. Yeah.
For sure. We're chatting here with Damian Saint on the Card Subject to Change podcast. I want to circle back to something you just said. You're breaking out of the mold. What mold are you breaking out of right now, and what is that going to transform you into?
I think you're going to see the real me. And, you know, they've talked about it. If you've seen the Vince McMahon, you know, the gimmick on Netflix, talk about like it's just a version of yourself turned up to 11, right? You know, they all
Correct.
talk. Every
Correct.
wrestler says this. Okay. I feel like I was really trying to hone in on something that I necessarily wasn't grasping. Like I couldn't figure out why. You know what I mean? And like, I think that there's something there right now that's like, okay, this is really picking up some steam. Like, what's heresy, right? Like heretic. It's being a believer in something. And truth be told, this is really all I have. So like I've said that before to like Jared Thumb and like JT Energy and those guys that have everything outside of this, that they have a life and they have everything. But like this is all I've got other than my job. Like this is it. And this is all I want. Like I want to be the supreme leader and emperor per se of Central Empire or wherever I go. Absolute Pro, EWA. You can name every single promotion, even if it's a backyard promotion, you know, doesn't really matter. I want to rule and I want to reign, and being the king of something, if that makes sense, you know?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, and taking over and people knowing that it's me and that and people are going to piggyback off what I'm doing for them emotionally, physically, and mentally. I mean, that's what we're doing. Like I said, it's a subjective thing and people can read it however you want. And I like to tell deeper stories than what you can possibly imagine because wrestling fans are smart. I mean, they really are. So like, let's get as deep as we possibly can. And I want to make it complicated enough for them to want to dig deeper, like a sacrilegious novel, like quite literally just page by page. You have to read word by word. Otherwise you're not going to understand it. I don't think a lot of people want to take that time as wrestlers, not knocking anybody by any means, but they want to make it easy and quick. It's like, nah, like let's get into it. Like, let's dive deep into it, like into the deep end. You're 4 years old and you're learning how to swim. I'm going to throw you off the diving board anyway without a life jacket. We're going to go for it. Someone's going to save you, but you're going to have to learn how to save yourself. So read it and just understand it, you know?
I love that.
I do too. I like that approach. I wanted to throw this out there. It just popped in my head. You know, I think everybody's, you know, if you're a wrestler, your dreams to make it one of the big companies and get signed. Well, let's push that to a side a little bit. I think the beauty and the glory of independent wrestling is kind of what you just said, of how you can control your character more so than you would at those other places. Of course, you got storylines, stuff you got to follow. I get that. But for the most part, you control yourself. You control how you're portrayed. You control how you act. I think of Matt Cardona and what he's done. Everybody's like, why isn't he signed with WWE? Why isn't he signed with AEW? And I've heard him say in interviews, I'm being the best version of I'm being myself and completely have control over myself. And that's got to be a great feeling to have all that control and to dictate the way you want to be portrayed and seen.
100%. And there's stuff on the pipeline too that, like, because obviously we all know that like Central Empire Wrestling is kind of my staple, you know, like that's kind of my future is CEW. I mean, like literally the work is going to be there and it's going to be put in there. And however, you know, I still want to work other places, don't get me wrong, but like Austin Bayless, cannot thank the guy enough because he's very much so the type of guy that will do anything he would give the shirt off his back, let's be completely honest, to help you in any sort of way he needs to possibly do it. And once again, not heel talk here. This is real, right? So like, and everything is real that we're doing. That's the point of this whole thing. Everything that we're doing is real. Okay. And whatever in any way that he can do to help us, he's going to do it. And he has a vision for me. I have that vision. I've also seen that vision without him even having to like do it himself. Like, I think we've all come to the consensus that this is the right way to go with the character. So like, we're going to roll with it. And it's beautiful to see. And I think come next year, BCS, a lot of people are going to be surprised of what is going to transpire with my character and what's coming down the pipeline. And I think I think that, how do I put it? It's going to humble some people. to see that you can follow your dreams and you can make it happen. No matter how hard you